The following is a GoPowerCat.com production.
It is 31 in Boulder, 59 degrees in Tempe, a frigid 5 degrees in Manhattan, Kansas, and a nice brisk 20 degrees here at Studio 73 in Frisco. This is the Big Insiders.
Welcome to the Big Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
What is going on, people? This is Brien Hanley. Welcome to the Big Insiders. This is a Big 12 sports show. We're covering all things Big 12. Look, yeah, I know OU and Texas are technically still in the Big 12, but for all intents and purposes, they're out. And we're not going to be talking about it. If they come up, yeah, we'll bring them up. But we're going to be covering all Big 12 things and all the new Big 12 moving forward. Yes, everybody included, all 16 teams. That's what this show is about. Today, we are covering Colorado and Arizona State. Let's get to it, people. Oh, hey, Fitz, what's going on? There we go. Adam Hunsteiger. How are you doing, Adam?
Brien, I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to Colorado rejoining the Big 12. I know it's going to look different than it did when Colorado was in the conference before. You mentioned Oklahoma, Texas going to the SEC, and some of those real strong rivalries that Colorado had with Nebraska and Missouri are gone. But I have fond feelings when I think back to Colorado competing in the Big 12, and I enjoyed parts of coverage in the Pac-12. I enjoyed going out to the Bay Area and having a full crab in front of me and devouring that thing. But then you go to the stadium the next day, and no offense to Stanford fans out there, but you kind of wonder, do people care about football in this area? Yeah. And so getting back into the Big 12 footprint, and again, it's going to look different. But I'm really looking forward to what that's going to show. I'm going to be, traveling out with Colorado to Orlando. I've never been out to Orlando before. So there's kind of the newness of it. Even though Colorado has been in the Big 12 before, it is going to be fun to cover.
Gotcha. And you were with the buffstampede.com, correct?
That's correct.
How long have you been covering University of Colorado sports out there?
Like Tim, it feels like forever in 2 days. It really has been a fun gig, but I started right out of college in 2003. I had taken some skiing trips out to Colorado when I was a kid, and I wanted to go to CU, but I couldn't afford the out-of-state tuition. So Noah Stanley, who was kind of my first mentor at the old Rivals, I told him, if that Colorado job ever opens up, please keep me in mind, and the stars aligned. And what are we talking about? 21 years later now.
Right. I got you. Well, good for you, man. So let's kind of get into this a little bit. Coming back to the Big 12, like you mentioned, look, I'm a former K-State football player. I played in 97 and 98. So I was there. Colorado was there. Colorado was really, really good back in those days. Kind of fell on hard times a little bit. But the prime effect, let's just talk about that. For me, as an outsider looking in, Adam, I'm a fan. I am a fan of what he is doing. I tell the truth about what's going on. And I said it last year. It's like, man, if they win 6 games, looking at that schedule, Prime should be coach of the year. I mean, if any football people that kind of looked at their roster and thought, oh, they're going to win 9 or 10 games, that was wishful, hopeful, just kind of ridiculous thinking. I'm like, they're not winning 9, 10, 8 games. That's just not going to happen. The schedule's just too tough, and they just don't have the roster for that right now. Taking a look at what he has done, and because I know a lot of people from the outside thinks that there was a lot of style, not a lot of substance after the season got going a little bit. Are the feelings still good out there as far as Colorado fans are concerned?
Yeah, no question. And it was tough to watch this team down the stretch this past season. Not just were they losing games, but their offensive line was a turnstile, and that's tough football to watch when you appreciate the sport. It makes it a hard experience, and so them being able to really quickly go into the portal and bring in basically a whole new offensive line has rejuvenated that excitement that we saw when, they were ranked early this past season, had beat TCU, Nebraska handily, and came back and beat Colorado State. And, there were so many eyeballs on this program. It was fun to see people have fun around Boulder again. It's one of those things where in this gig, you try to stay as unbiased as you can.
Sure.
But, outside of 2016, Colorado football has been a really miserable experience for its fans. It just has.
Yeah.
And so to see them be able to go to Folsom Field and feel like they're actually going to have a chance at a victory was a different feeling a little bit. You look back at 2022, Colorado ranked dead last in all the FBS ranks in scoring margin, and it was by a wide margin. They were losing games by more than 29 points a game. And so for Coach Prime to come in, and I know he took some flack, as he often says, sometimes his confidence makes other people feel insecure. And I've seen that because go off a little bit on a side tangent here. More than anything, what's impressed me the last 13 months with Coach Prime at the helm, Deion Sanders leading the Colorado Buffaloes, is the type of human being he is and how it goes beyond football. And just to see how he embraces everybody. And everybody thinks that what they see on camera is him 24/7, 365, and that's simply not the case. But going back to football, that dynamic personality and that him really going on the forefront of, if your son comes to play for me, he's going to leave here as a better human being, has been his sales pitch. Colorado has a collective, but they are not in the ball game with those top programs from an NIL sense. So it took 2 off seasons for them to really bring into solid transfer classes to bring in the depth when you basically had to overhaul the entire roster. And we'll see. You're not going to bat 1,000 with these transfers coming in. Last year's class transfer.
Uh-oh. You still there, Adam?
In there.
Gotcha.
We're lower rated guys. This class that they're bringing in with this transfer class this year are starters from other programs.
Yeah.
The vast majority of it. So it's hard not to be optimistic. You do want to be kind of cautiously optimistic if you're a Colorado fan because of all the heartbreak that you've endured. My heart breaks for those Arizona folks out there, the way Jed Fish left them. Colorado fans had to deal with that with Mel Tucker leaving in 2019. But it's been an exhilarating process covering this program with Coach Prime at the helm. And maybe because Colorado has been down for so long, you have a hard time kind of keeping it in check. But I do think this is going to be a program that's going to be in the mix next year in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in the mix for sure. And like you said, it takes more than just one recruiting class or transfer class to be able to change your program. I mean, Colorado, like I said, Colorado for me growing up and watching Colorado, that was always a place. I remember when we played there in 1998. It was, I just walked around when we first got to the stadium. I was like, this place is incredible. I remember watching it on television. I remember Ralphie running out. I mean, Ralphie, that was a little discouraging to me because they run Ralphie literally directly at you as the visitors. They wait till you come out of the locker room, and then they run Ralphie right at you. I'm like, is he really going to veer to this trailer or not? I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but let me stand back a little bit because it's not going to end well for us. But yeah, I love Colorado football. Like I said, I'm a K-State guy, but Colorado, I think coming back to the Big 12, I know why they left. I totally understand it, but I also get why they came back, and I think it's going to be good for Colorado all around.
Yeah, no, I think the passion for football matches up a little bit better with the Big 12 with Colorado, and maybe it's a little bit more of a West Coast flair than Manhattan in Lawrence. But I think folks that kind of saw and experienced those wine and cheese atmospheres in the Pac-12 are I would think looking forward to it kind of the same way I am as far as pulling up to my media spot and just kind of soaking in that tailgate atmosphere. We had that at TCU for Colorado's opener this past year. It just means a little bit more.
It does
in that footprint as opposed to the Pac-12.
Yeah, it does. And that's the thing about the Pac-12. I mean, Yes, I'm an outsider. I wasn't in on the Pac-12. Pac-12, a lot of the games come on late, so you don't watch all the games all the time. But the one thing I know about Colorado and part of Dion and what he did, they played that game against Colorado State. Half the country stayed up till 2:00 in the morning watching the end of that football game. And it's just like, and I thought to myself, I'm like, when was the last time I stayed up to watch anything at 2:30 in the morning? When was the last time that happened? Much less a football game where I have nothing invested. I literally have nothing invested, and I stayed up. I just think Colorado is on the way back. Now, here's a question for you. Colorado and Dion, a lot of people are saying, well, he's there for his kids. First of all, I don't begrudge him. If you can take a job and beholden your kids and help them get to the next level, who wouldn't do that? Everybody does that. So people that want to give him a hard time for that, I think are just idiotic, because if anybody had an opportunity to take a job and enhance their children to get to the next level of what they want to do, every parent is doing that, period, point blank. So I don't begrudge him for that. However, there's also the talk of how long is he going to stay? You know, his kids are leaving after this year. I think it becomes a little hypocritical if he leaves after 2 years, after everything that he says. He would have to answer for that. So is there a fear in Colorado? Do you have that fear? Is there talk about him possibly leaving sooner than later?
From the top, I mentioned that I've been covering Colorado football for 21 years. And so there's kind of, as much, again, as you try to kind of stay unbiased in this, there is a reality that you just don't know what a coach is going to, what opportunities lie in front of him.
Sure.
What I can say definitively, based on everything that I know from everything I've heard the last 13 months, is that Colorado, surprise is maybe a strong word, because Coach Prime took this job. So he wasn't expecting Colorado to be a bad place to go coach, but
right.
It's surpassed and it's kind of endeared itself to him more than I think a lot of those outsiders know. You mentioned going out to Colorado and kind of taking in that atmosphere. I didn't go to the University of Colorado, but there's a kind of a special vibe that's there. And so to have one winning season dating back to 2005, I mean, that's a special set of circumstances that has lined up against this program. And I don't know if it's karma or it's just things kind of reverting to the norm here, but and I don't know how long Coach Prime is going to be in Boulder, but I would be surprised if he's not the head coach in Boulder in 2025. He has gone out of his way so many times to talk about how he doesn't inherit legacies, he builds them. And I think now that you've kind of see the momentum with him having a full off season of recruiting under his belt, of kind of knowing the lay of the land and really knowing how to sell this place, that it really could kind of take off from there, especially with an expanded college football playoff. There's no question that, the skill positions are going to be stocked. They got to find Shedeur Sanders' replacement at some point. And that's going to be a tall task. But yeah, you can't predict the future. I just know that Coach Prime isn't 1 foot in, 1 foot out coaching this team.
That's good. That's good to hear. I'll be honest with you, Adam. That's great to hear, because as much as people want to ridicule Coach Prime, they want him involved. They want him to be involved in college football, and college football is better for it, man. It just is. And another thing, I know young kids don't get it because they haven't seen Colorado be good. They just haven't. Colorado, the NCAA football and college football is better when Colorado's good. It just is. I mean, at least for guys my age, Colorado was always good under Bill McCartney. They were so good for so long. And then to see them hit those hard times, and then they just kind of got forgotten. And I think that was, it was just bad. It was just a bad look. And then they left the conference. And again, I understand why they left. I mean, I don't begrudge them. I mean, when somebody's taking advantage of you and you have another opportunity, you might as well go and take that other opportunity. But now that they're gone, we're glad Colorado's back. That's a good thing. Let's change gears here. Basketball wise, coming back to the conference, look, Colorado, I don't think that Tad Boyle or the basketball team, the men's basketball team, gets the respect that it deserves. I'm not saying that they're a year in and year out juggernaut or anything like that. But they're a good basketball team, and he is a damn good basketball coach.
Yeah, Tad Boyle is the winningest coach in Colorado men's basketball history, and yet you still have this strong debate because they have not got out of the first round of March Madness. And until that happens, you're going to have this group of Colorado fans that want more. I've been in the camp of, I think it boils down to this. If you like your team being competitive every year, being in the top half of the conference, having an outside chance to get in the NCAA tournament, and if the stars aligned, you'd have a special season, then you love Tad Boyle. If you want, if you're not satisfied with that, if you'd rather have some sub 500 seasons, but yet a team that maybe has a chance to catch lightning in a bottle with whoever they would replace Tad Boyle with. I don't know who would want this job if you fired Tad Boyle after all the success he's had in Boulder. That would seem like a red flag to me as a head coach, especially given their resources there. That's going to be challenging for them coming back in the Big 12 because they're going to be at a deficit as far as that goes with NIL and just they got new facilities when Tad Boyle took over, and he's now been the head coach for 14 years. But his ability to field to put on the court competitive basketball teams year after year is what's most impressive about what he's done. And he brought Cody Williams to campus this year. He was been dealing with a wrist injury. He's a 5-star guy out of Arizona. If the stars align, Colorado could go on a run in March Madness this year, but they've been unhealthy this year. And going ahead, looking forward to the Big 12 in terms of the basketball sense, it's going to be really a challenging deal for Colorado, I think, to stay competitive and just have somebody that has that history in the conference, that coached Colorado his first year when they were in the Big 12, played at Kansas himself, is probably a good launch pad to in terms of at least being competitive in the conference going forward.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my first thing, is that he understands the conference a little bit. Even though it was a long time ago, I still believe he understands it because even right now, before all the additions, the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball. It's only going to get better next season. It's only going to get better. So you're right. Colorado is, in my estimation, they're right on the cusp of the upper half of the league. But to be competitive, it's going to be tough. The women, on the other hand, it's a different story. The Colorado women, J.R. Payne's got that program rolling.
And she has really had linear improvement with that program. This was a program that was struggling early in her tenure there. And I don't cover them day to day, but a guy that I collaborate a lot with, Brien Hanley, is kind of the main beat writer for the women's team. And it's funny. He was telling J.R. Payne going into the season, why did you schedule LSU? You're not going to win that game. And they go out to Las Vegas and not only get the strength of schedule boost that comes with that game, but they pull off the upset. And from that point, it's you got big expectations on you. Absolutely. And I've been impressed with this team's willingness to kind of face that head on. And there are high expectations for the women's basketball program in the first time I've covered, CU.
Yeah. That's one thing about it is that I looked at that game at the very beginning of the season. Not only did they win, they smacked LSU around. And I thought, man, these girls are good. So looking forward to the Big 12 here with all the new additions that are coming in. Where is there a destination? I know you mentioned Orlando. Is there a destination that's out there that maybe you haven't been to that you are looking forward to going to in the future?
Orlando is up on the schedule this year, and get up to Cincinnati. I've never been up there. I've heard Skyline Chili's the real deal.
Best.
So it's the best. Okay.
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, only about 85 miles from there. I'm telling you, it's the best. You got to get used to spaghetti noodles, though, because they put spaghetti noodles in chili. So some people aren't used to that.
Where do I need to go in Manhattan?
Aggieville. Just go to Aggieville, anywhere in Aggieville, and find a place. There's not a bad place there. I'll be honest with you. Look, I know that makes me a homer. I understand that part of it, but and it's been a while. I mean, I that was 25 years ago that I was there, but I've been back several times, and it's Manhappiness for a reason. You just can't find a bad place when you go there. But just head to Aggieville. Plenty of good places to eat, drink, whatever you're wanting to do. It's a good time in Manhattan. One thing about Colorado is the economy boost that Coach Prime. What's it been like around the city, and kind of what's the buzz around the city talking about the program, or maybe even just going back to the Big 12 in general?
The best story I can share there is there's a 10 a.m. kickoff against USC. Fox Big Noon kickoff is in Boulder, and I'm trying to pull into the parking garage that I park at before games, and just some random CU fan recognized me. He ripped off his shirt. Let's go, baby. It was like there was more passion. I'm like, I'm just trying to park my car here, but there was more passion in Boulder than I've seen in a very long time. At the very end of the 2016 season, when Colorado won the Pac-12 South and Philip Lindsay was on the team, Cephalou Lufau, they had a nice stretch where they won 2 in a row at home that kind of brought out some of that same emotions, but it was on a different level this year. And I think people were just so starved for success. I mean, even back in 2022, when I mentioned they had the worst scoring margin out of 131 FBS programs, they rushed the field the one game they won.
Right.
It's not like people had checked out on this program. They just were starved for anything to get excited about. And Coach Prime has done that. And this is a part of college football that's special, and it's why we have jobs, because people tune into this stuff 365. Sure. But when you have recruiting wins, there's kind of this emotion that you have as a college football fan out there. And so it's not just those 12, 13, 14 games, however many you have a chance to play as a college football program. It's throughout the year, and recruiting battles, and just kind of that day-to-day camaraderie that you have on the message boards, and folks really connecting through their love for a specific school. And so to kind of see there be less bickering among Colorado fans, and to just see more happiness, more smiles was nice. Even though they went 4-8, but there was kind of this feeling of we see where this is headed as long as Coach Prime is around in Boulder.
See, and that's where I was going with it, is because I can see the forest for the trees. It's just like, I get where they're going. I understand that there's going to be some bumps in the road. And I think football people in general knew that Colorado wasn't going to be great. I think they understood and saw what was going on. I think a lot of it was people, okay, they kicked off all these kids, or they ran off all these kids. What are they doing out there? And I'm just like, hold on, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. The rules are the rules. Use the rules to the best of your ability. My thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, and by all means, if I can be wrong, is I believe that it wasn't all coaching is what the problem was at Colorado football. I don't believe it was all coaching. Now, a lot of it was coaching, and they're the ones that recruited the kids, but I would be willing to say that 75 to 80% of the kids maybe shouldn't have had a scholarship at that level of football, and that they were out there. That's just my personal belief as being somebody. Now, again, it was a long time ago that I played football, but I know what I see. I know what's out there. You can't tell me that you can't put a more competitive roster out there if kids are, and again, I'm not blaming kids, because if you give me an opportunity to play Division I football, I'm taking it. It is what it is. But at the same time, maybe they shouldn't have been. And I don't think a lot of people looked at it that way. They just looked at Deion kicking off kids, and that's it. And I'm like, well, hold on. Did they really deserve to be there in the first place? And I go, and again, now part of that, a lot of that is the coaching, and they're the ones who recruited them. But I think there was a lot of that going on, and I think he got a little bit bad, just a bad name, just sour taste in people's mouths, because they thought he's just kicking off all these deserving kids, and I don't think that was the case. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if it was so much of running off as it was challenging.
Yeah, there you go.
You can go back to that initial team meeting that he had when he first got in Boulder. And there were guys, Trevor Woods, who's going to be a big part of this program in 2024. I mean, even a walk-on running back, Charlie Offerdahl, became one of Coach Prime's favorite people, and that was a returning player in this program. And so the vast majority of guys, and there were a few that were told, and that's a first-year head coach's prerogative to say, you don't have a spot here going forward. And, we could spend a whole lot of time talking about, the freedom that college players have gotten here with the portal, but it's come with the cost, so to go back to Coach Prime in him having to change the culture, it was not necessarily we're forcing you into the portal. It's that if you can't hear this message that you're going to have to compete, that I'm bringing in better players and you're not going to step up to that challenge, then you're not worthy to play for me. Yes. And so that's where it was kind of missed, I think, with the messaging from some folks. And there are guys, again, that are still on this team, not many. Most of them, saw other pastures because, frankly, they recruited above them as well. And that's not running guys off. That's just making your program better. And so I understand it was controversial, but at the same time, Coach Prime went viral as a result of that. And as a result of that, going back into the portal this year, guys hit the portal and they weren't tampering, but they had guys immediately. I know my first option is Colorado because I want to step up to that challenge that Coach Prime issued to this team in his first team meeting. And I saw what you guys were missing in 2023. And I have enough confidence in my ability to come in and be part of that solution. And so I think that's kind of what he was doing, was creating a different mentality within the program that needed to be changed, frankly. And to your point, you said you didn't really think coaching was the issue. Now, it comes down to recruiting, and they didn't have the players in the program. But Mike Sanford took over as an interim head coach from Carl Durrell in 2022, and I thought he was doing a good job, but he didn't have the players. And that's what Coach Prime saw when he watched that film. That, and he said this, that he was watching film of these guys. He knew what he was inheriting. And so it was challenge these guys. And if you step up to the challenge, you have a spot on this roster. But a lot of guys weren't talented enough or didn't want to step up to that challenge.
Right. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that too, Adam, because I know there's a lot of there's obviously going to be a lot of K-State fans that are tuning in and watching this initially. And a lot of them think that Coach Prime just ran people off. And I'm like, that's not really the case. First of all, recruiting over guys. I was a guy that got recruited to K-State over guys that were there to come in and play. So that's been going on forever. That's nothing new as far as coaches recruiting over guys. And then now the thing is, well, then now guys leave as well. If I'm not going to get to play, I'm not going to even try to develop. And I think that's more of a generational thing of, hey, okay, well, if I can't play right this very second, I'm going somewhere else to play. And I love the transfer portal. I absolutely love it. But when I was coming up and I was playing in college, if you transferred or if you left to go play pro football early and you didn't get drafted or something like that, and whatever, it didn't work out, nobody cared. My thoughts about that are, if somebody transfers and there's a lot of guys that don't get to play or anywhere else, or they don't get picked up in the transfer portal. It's like, well, look, man, the life lessons. That's why you go to college to learn life lessons. There's nothing more than to teach you that everything has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. And I think a lot of people look at the transfer portal. First of all, it's not ruining college football. I've said that a million times. It's not ruining college football, but there are consequences. That's just the way it is. I think Coach Prime is using it the correct way. I think he understands that, first of all, Colorado has maybe a little bit better of high school football than Kansas, but you're not getting 50 guys out of Colorado that are able to play big time Division I football. So you got to use what you can use to put a competitive roster out there. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And I do think when you have a strong recruiter as a head coach at Colorado or Kansas State, you want as lenient as policies with the transfer portal as you can get, because then you can get guys that are in other programs that thought the grass was greener staying closer to home. And Colorado's brought in a lot of those guys here the last couple of years that
for them.
go a couple years in college being close to home, I maybe need to get out there and branch out a little bit. Obviously, the other side of that coin is guys that just get trapped in the portal and
Yes.
they try to bet on themselves and, just turned out that they weren't perceived as somebody that was talented enough to take that risk. And so that's a bummer, no doubt. But I don't know. I'm curious. I'm going to change gears here a little bit, Brian. I'm curious. I was thinking the other day, the challenge with the Big 12 going forward is going to be the parity in this conference. I see a lot of cannibalism taking place from teams that are not really that far apart in terms of kind of where they enter this new conference in.
I think you're 100% correct. You kind of saw that happen in the Pac-12 this year. Pac-12 first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, which I still thought it was the best conference in the country football-wise. I don't care what the end. I believe that top to bottom, it was the best in the country this year. That's my opinion. But you saw some of that. I think the same thing's going to happen. You might see maybe an elevated team, year to year, but I think it's going to be different every year on who is the best. That's good and it's bad. It's good and it's bad. It's just what you said. There's going to be some cannibalism because teams are going to beat you, but there's going to be a lot of good teams. So we'll see. I mean, getting into college football,
now you get a 12-team playoff at least, right?
That's exactly
that's the saving grace. Yeah.
Yes. And so can you get 2 in? Can you get 3 in? Because the SEC and the Big Ten, personally, I think they got 7 spots saved for them, at least. That they have 7 spots that are built in for those schools. Whether they deserve it or they don't, I think they have at least 7 that they're going to put in there. And then it's like, okay, then what? You have a Power 5 or a group of 5 that's going to be in there. Then who else is going to be in there? It's troubling, but you're right. The parity in the new conference, it's going to be great. And it's going to be our downfall because people are going to pick us apart when it comes to, well, you lost 4 games within your conference. I'm like, yeah, but did you see who we lost to? I'm like, everybody's good in the conference, There's no Vanderbilts running around out there, they're just not. And personally, there's not going to be. But I've seen it from the Big 12. When I was in school, Baylor was awful. They were absolutely awful. And then until this past year, Baylor's competing for Big 12 titles year in and year out. So it can change. It can change. A good coaching hire here or there brings in some recruiting. Things are going to be different, but I think you're 100% correct, Adam, as far as that's concerned. Do you think as far as, and I know I touched on it earlier, as far as basketball, again, I just think it's going to be the best basketball. I think it already is. I don't think you're going to even be able to touch basketball as far as it being the best conference in the country.
Yeah, you're going to have hopefully everybody really stepping up in non-conference play to get that strength of schedule going for everybody. It's not going to be a debate unless, like you said, things can change in the future.
Sure.
I do remember those days when Baylor, if you lost to Baylor, oh man, you should walk home. You don't get to get on that plane. But
absolutely.
Now, yeah. So it's going to be fun, and it's going to make for riveting competition, I think, in both sports, men's basketball and football going forward. And that's the part that I think, maybe it kind of stinks when you have teams that are taking each other out of competition for the college football playoff. But just what your eyes see on a Saturday, I think, is going to be really fun in football, and then basketball just being so competitive that I would imagine the majority of the conference will be in the NCAA tournament, right? In basketball.
Right. Absolutely. I definitely see that for sure. Without question. So, well, Adam, look, man, I appreciate you joining us today, man. Thank you for taking the time. We're definitely going to start bringing you back even more often. Like I said, this is our first show. So I appreciate you being the first guest on the first show of the Big Insiders, man. So we're going to take a quick break here with our partners at Synergy Energy or Synergy Financial Partners. I apologize. And we'll be right back.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, The goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
All right. Thank you. We were waiting for a guest to come in from Arizona State. Hasn't quite made it here yet. So I'm just going to take off and we're just going to talk for a little bit. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Now, look, Big 12, the new Big 12, to me, first of all, my feelings are hurt. As you guys know, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I was hoping so bad that Louisville was going to get into the conference, and they didn't get in. When they brought in West Virginia to the Big 12, I thought they were going to get in. And then when they had the new Big 12 and they added all these teams, I thought, well, let's hope the ACC implodes and Louisville will get in. That'll make it so much easier for me. Love K-State, love Louisville. Things make it so much easier. But that didn't happen yet. I think the ACC still is going to implode sooner or later. You can't continue to make $30 million less than these other schools and just stick around. I don't think that's – first of all, it's not sustainable. You can't compete. You're not going to be able to compete with these other schools, you know? So that's one part of it. I think the new Big 12, adding these new schools in, the UCFs, the Cincinnatis that got in this year, BYU is huge. The following for BYU is incredible. Their fans are incredible. They're only going to get better. They were better this year in football than I know a lot of people thought they were even going to be. And that's only going to get better. Having that UCF, base that people can dip into Florida and get more recruits out of Florida to come out to Cincinnati, a K-State, Houston. I've said this before. I think Houston is kind of a hidden gem because it is in Houston. They have a lot of people. Texas plays outstanding high school football. If they get the right coach in there, and maybe they have it, maybe they don't, we'll see. But if they can figure that out, I think Houston is kind of a hidden gem. Now, we got the other schools. We talked about Colorado. We talked about, we haven't talked about Arizona State, but Arizona State's coming in. I know they had their former athletic director said a little stuff about, not wanting to go to Morgantown. Well, he's ever been to Morgantown on a college football game day? Because I can tell you I've been, and it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And maybe you don't want to take a long plane ride if that's what it is, but it's absolutely incredible, that entire atmosphere. Check it out one time. That's just my personal opinion. Going to Cincinnati, bringing in Arizona. Arizona's going to be, I know they just lost their football coach, but I think Arizona's going to be, if they brought the right guy in, and they just hired him hours ago, it was just announced. If they bring the right guy in and he's coming from San Jose State, if he can figure it out and keep enough guys around, I think that's a hidden gem. The thing that's troubling with Arizona is they were going to be a top 5 program next year to begin the season, I believe, at least top 10. And then their coach leaves. He takes a bunch of guys with him. I'm like, I don't know, man. Ugh. That, again, the downside of the transfer portal. But then, look, if the coach left, the players got to be able to leave too, and that's literally just what happens. So I don't know. It just depends on what your preference is. I know I've been hard on K-State fans about the transfer portal, that a lot of people think that it's ruining college football. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that it's ruining college football at all, or college sports in general. Let's not just, say college football in general. I just don't believe it. It gives kids options that they never had options before. It doesn't have to be the minor leagues for big time programs. Are you going to have some of that? Sure. Absolutely. You're going to have some of that. But our good friends at the NCAA, and we know how great they are, if they just made a couple of little tweaks to this thing, all of this could go away. Literally all of it could go away. Just a couple of tweaks. Doesn't have to be, crazy. Just a few little tweaks. And those tweaks are, you got 5 years to play for. Back when I played, that's all you got. And look, I'm sorry if you get hurt. I'm sorry if you blow your knee out in the 5th game of the season. That's it. You get 5 years to play for. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. I know we try to make it complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. We don't need to have, fully grown men playing against 18-year-old kids. What are we talking about, people? 7th-year seniors. And look, I know Kansas State is possibly may have one. It can't happen. What are we doing? 25 and 26-year-old men are possibly going to be playing against 18-year-old kids. Is that what we're doing? I just don't understand that. I've never understood that. I'm never going to understand that. 5 years to play 4. That's all you get, people. That's all you get. So, all right. I think our man is joining us now. Chris Cartman from Arizona State. Let's bring him in. Chris, how you doing, my man?
Doing great. Glad to be with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining the Big Insiders, man. So, first off, you are covering Arizona State, correct?
You got it.
All right. Kind of give us the lowdown on your website, all that good stuff, where people can find you real quick.
Yeah, sundevilsource.com or ASU247.com. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, covering ASU.
Absolutely.
Very interested in kind of getting to know everybody in Big 12 country. This is a new thing. I've been watching a lot of Big 12 basketball this year, just trying to acclimate. Did the same thing with football. Seems like it's going to be a great experience. A lot of ASU fans, and I think people just in the mountain schools are looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my first thing. The first topic is that I shouldn't say topic, but I was going to ask you about the old athletic director. Had some comments about not wanting to go to West Virginia, all that good stuff. Didn't seem to be I guess the footprint of the Arizona State fan base as a whole. It didn't seem like he was speaking for the people when he came out with those kind of remarks. Am I wrong with that?
You're not wrong at all. There were a lot of sort of flippant comments that were really unthinkingly made by Ray Anderson in his time. And he was the least liked person really around ASU in many years. There was just so much frustration. He had brought in Herm Edwards, his good friend, somebody that was a business relationship, and that went really bad. About as bad as you. In fact, ASU's football staff is not able to go on the road recruiting this week. And the NCAA case is not even finalized. And this has been 2 years of self-imposed sanctions that they've been going through. So it's a huge thing that happened. But when he made those comments, I was there, everybody immediately knew, like, this guy put his foot in his mouth again. And here we're about to go.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of the football program, tell us a little bit about Kenny Dillingham, what the program's going through. I know it was a little bit of a tough year this year, but transition year, just a transition year, I would say. Give us a tidbit on moving forward. I know they played some really, really tough games and played Washington pretty much to the gun at the end of the season. So what is the outlook for next year? What are fans kind of expecting out of the program moving forward coming into the Big 12?
Yeah, absolutely. They were in a bad shape with the roster that they inherited.
Right.
That's the bottom line. The prior staff hadn't been recruiting for like a year. ASU took 50 new scholarship players in the span of just a few months. Unheard of. Wouldn't have even been possible in prior years due to the rule change that went into effect. They benefited from that. But they also had a lot of injury problems, offensive line, quarterback, that exacerbated the issues that they had. But they've now been 2 years in a row in the transfer portal top 20 rankings. And I feel like they got their NIL program is really kind of up to speed now and starting to work. And you put those two things together with, I think, a pretty good coaching staff. The pedigree is good. Dillingham is a protege of Mike Norvell. It's very similar offense. They were on the staff together with Todd Graham, 2012, 13, 14, 15, before Norvell took the Memphis job. Dillingham was there for 2 years as a GA. Brian Ward was the defensive coordinator at Washington State before ASU. This is a staff that has a ton of former head coaching experience, a lot of veteran sort of leadership. And they have a very good approach in terms of how they message their program, recruiting locally, the things that they're trying to do and build culturally that I think resonates with the fan base. So people are very much on board. They wanted Dillingham to be the choice. And now I think you're going to see a steady improvement over the next couple of years. Quarterback play is going to be super, super important for them between Jaden Rashada, Sam Levitt primarily. Got to get that ironed out and get better play there. But if so, maybe they can win 6 games or something like that this year.
Well, that's kind of how I see, Arizona State as a whole. I kind of see it as a sleeping giant because it's a school with a lot of kids. And like you said, they got their NIL going. That can never hurt, especially in the landscape of college football right now. I just see the overall athletic program as a whole kind of being a little bit of a sleeping giant, especially the football program. Switching gears, basketball, Bobby Hurley. I'm not sure. Well, I can just come out and say this. I don't think they've gotten to where I think Arizona State fans think they would be right now under Bobby Hurley. Am I wrong in saying that?
You're not wrong. That's exactly the sentiment that a lot of people have. They've made the tournament a few times, but it's been just barely creeping in and then not really able to do any damage once they get there. They played TCU. Really good game in March in the round of 64 after they got into the first 4. They fell apart kind of down the stretch, which is the kind of thing that's happened is it's been a roller coaster, a lot of up and downs, right? The problem is that they lost Warren Washington and Devin Cambridge to Texas Tech. That was partly NIL related. Right. And they lost DJ Horn to NC State. So if they had these 3 players, they would be in a totally different place right now with this particular team. But the thing that I've questioned Hurley about, there's not a very clear, good answer, is you knew that was probably going to happen when you had good players. So what were you doing from a fundraising standpoint to make sure, because you're Bobby Hurley, you're one of the greatest coaches, one of the greatest players to ever play the game at the college level. You have great name ID, you have the ability to build relationships with boosters and all this stuff over a very long period of time. You had to get it to a place where you knew you were going to be able to get those guys to stay and continue to build. That hasn't happened. I think he now acknowledges that he has to do more in the NIL space from a fundraising standpoint. I just don't know if they're going to be able to do that well enough transitioning to where it's going to even be tougher in the Big 12.
Yeah, that was going to be my very next question to you, because moving into the Big 12, like I mentioned, previously, is that the Big 12 right now, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, the basketball, it's the best conference in the country. It's only going to get better next year. What's Hurley? I mean, at some point you have to be getting better. And I just don't see them and I know you elaborated on it. I just don't see them getting better under him. And I'm never saying that somebody should be fired or anything like that. That's not my place or anything like that. But I think Arizona State it can be better than what it's been. And especially in the landscape of what college basketball is right now, I think Arizona State has a real opportunity to do something if they move forward, if they keep their eye on the ball. And you're right about Hurley. One of the most recognized, one of the most famous college football, most successful, not football, college basketball players ever. Not just in the last 30 years, ever. And for him not to go out and fundraise or do the things necessary to get the program where it needs to be, I just thought they would be much better than where they are right now.
I understand that sentiment. I think that is widely held perspective around the country. When you look at ASU, he's never been to the round of 32 in 8 years in. And they had a pretty good team the pandemic year when that got canceled, and then maybe they would have made a run then. ASU's really struggled, I think, administratively to understand what is required to get everybody on board. They have an aging arena that really hasn't been upgraded to the degree that really you need to be able to appeal from a recruiting standpoint. I think he's had a lot of staff turnover that's also been kind of head scratching. But the teams that he's coached have always kind of been up and down. and unpredictable, and not really in ways that ultimately lead to any sort of overachieving. And we all understand at this point that money is the bottom line and most important thing,
Oh, yeah.
because you're losing players because of they're getting paid more to go somewhere else because of NIL. That's the bottom line. Guys like to play for Hurley, but they like getting paid even more.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is that if they feel like their draft stock's not going to be adversely affected, they're going to go chase those opportunities. You can't blame them for that. I did a lot of reporting. The Big 12 players make 4 to 5 times more than in the Pac-12 in the top 20 players per position based on open doors, which is a thing that is a marketplace for a lot of these NIL deals. They provide the data to collectives. So ASU is right now not competitive in that space.
Right.
That needs a comprehensive overhaul in everything that you're doing, administratively, coaching priorities, what you're selling players on, and then perhaps you can get your arena situation resolved. You put that all together, and I do think that you have some other pieces that are very constructed to building success.
Gotcha. And that's the whole thing is like, I don't think just moving conferences is going to change somebody's NIL status or what they're doing with the collectives. I mean, I know that they're going to be in a Big 12, and that's great, but that isn't going to change what they're doing. They have to go out and do it, and make it happen. Because otherwise, if they don't, the teams are going to pass them by and they're just going to be stuck in the mud there. And I don't think Arizona State is moving to the Big 12 to be stuck in the mud.
No. And the thing that you understand intuitively is you have a window of opportunity. And
That's right.
when that window of opportunity starts closing, it becomes harder to convince people the things that you need to be able to be successful. So,
absolutely.
so this is why you can't retroactively fix these problems. So all you can do is try to have relationships and be honest and transparent and say, we haven't done a good enough job in some of these areas. That needs to improve. Here's the way in which I think we can do it, but we're going to need help to happen. And absent that, I think you're probably going to have struggles with ASU basketball moving into the Big 12, such that a new athletic director, when that person is hired, could revisit the status of the program.
Gotcha. So moving on into the Big 12, like we said, I know Arizona State's coming in. Fans are excited. Is there any places or things that maybe you or ASU fans are talking about or wanting to go that maybe they haven't been to, places they're excited about seeing for the first time?
Yeah. For me, this is great because we've been to the same schools all the time, and you always want to check off college towns and see what the atmosphere is like at different places. I've loved in the past going to Kansas for a basketball game, going to Oklahoma State for a football game, going to Texas Tech. So I've been to several of the Big 12 venues for games. But me, I'm looking forward to the places I've never been, like going to Ames, Iowa, going to Manhattan, Kansas. These are places that you aren't going to a lot if you're from the West, and unless it's for college football or basketball experience, right?
Absolutely.
So for me, that's going to be great. I think ASU fans also, they have a diehard traveling segment that loves to go to all these places. Who's not going to want to go to Baylor when you have the opportunity to make a pit stop in Austin, Texas, if you want to do that?
Right.
So all of them, for me, all of them, because I don't presuppose what I'm going to like or not like about any of these experiences. I go in with a very open mind, and then, hey, I like this, and then this is difficult and whatever. So I just think that the newness of it and the ability to have these experiences that are new and different is something that's very exciting for everybody involved.
Gotcha. Well, Chris, I'm glad to hear you say that, because as a Kansas State guy, Kansas State fans tend to travel. And when we have the opportunity to go to Arizona State, I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a lot of people. So it's good to hear that Arizona State has that fan base that is willing to go to other places too, because I feel like that's a pride thing within the conference that, number one, Kansas State takes pride in. They are kind of known as the team within the conference that travels the best. And it would be nice to see somebody else do the same. There's other schools that tend to travel a little bit, but as K-State fans travel the best within the conference. So I'm glad to hear that Arizona State has that fan base that is willing to go out and do the same type of thing.
Oh yeah, and we've seen ASU fans have seen Kansas State travel because they played in the bowl game. The Holiday Bowl, maybe if I'm not remembering it incorrectly, but you put that together, and it's like obviously the fan base at Kansas State is fantastic, and so
right.
ASU is going to have to match that, right?
Right. Well, the one thing that I know for sure back, and I know this was a long time ago, but in 1997, Kansas State played in the Fiesta Bowl in Tempe. And that's when the game was actually still in Tempe and literally took over the entire place. So, Arizona State, I know they know firsthand that K-State travels. Well, I want to thank you today, Chris. We'll bring you back on more and more, man. I want to thank you again, man, for joining the Big Insiders. We're just getting this show started, man. So I appreciate you jumping on here with us today on such short notice.
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right. Thank you.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
I just put you in break and didn't tell you.
That's all right. That's no problem. I appreciate it, man. So we're going to get to some questions here, right?
If we have any.
If we have any. Let's check and see if we've got any questions.
Not really right now. We had a lot of comments.
I feel like I was doing a lot of rambling and asking questions.
That's all right. That's all right. You'll grow into you'll figure this out as you go. You're doing much better than I did when I did my first ones. But Brien, when we set up this show, we wanted it. You and I were on the same page. We never really discussed this. We wanted this to be forward-looking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about Oklahoma and Texas in terms of the basketball season that's ongoing because they're relevant to that. But football, no, we're not going to talk any of that. No. We're going to look ahead, and that's why we had two of the new publishers on this first episode because I'm intrigued. I really am, and I know we're going to get Jason Shear on from Arizona at some point soon, and some of the other guys. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But this is about the new 12 for us. This is important for us because we feel like the new 12. Honestly, I think ESPN is going to do nothing but cover the SEC. And Fox will react by covering nothing but the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. They've already done it. They've already said it. And kind of what I mentioned earlier, we know for a fact that of those 12 playoff spots, a minimum of 7 of those are going to go to the SEC in the Big Ten. I don't care what anybody's saying. That's going to happen. Because if they could have gotten 2 teams in or 3 teams in, they'd have done it every single year. We saw it on multiple levels. It is what it is. So they're going to cover those teams. I just think it's an important space for us to get out in front of and let everybody know, look, the Big 12 matters. It's always mattered. And Big 12 football matters. And it's always going to matter. So regardless of what the big brands tell you, we're here to tell you otherwise.
Fans have to keep in mind there's inventory. You've got all these games that you've bought the rights to. And you only have so many places to put them. I mean, you've got only so many slots on ESPN or ESPN2 or even, if you're going to put games on there. And with Fox, you only have a couple. I mean, outside of the main networks, ABC and Fox, you've got Fox, FS1 and FS2 sort of. But we're seeing it with the Big 12 basketball right now. There are 3 games tonight in the Big 12, good games that are on ESPN Plus. They just don't they have so much overlap programming that they don't have room. That's why I think it's going to be really important after the Big 12 goes to 16 to, if they go any further, they're going to have to add another TV partner. They're just going to have it because they won't be able to handle the inventory and do justice of the Big 12 unless everything's going to go on streaming, which isn't healthy for the conference. Well, it's not now.
No, it's not now. I'm one of those people that think everything is going to head to streaming anyway.
Yeah,
I just
agree.
believe that. You know, I
Agree.
know people were fed up talking about the Kansas City and Dolphins game that was on Peacock this weekend, and I'm like, look, here's the thing. I get it that it stinks, and it's not even about the money for me, Fitz. But my thing is, when have we not paid to be entertained?
Right.
Like, people pay for entertainment. That's just the way that it works. And it's going to end up going to that. And yes, I do believe that even the Super Bowl, at some point, you're going to have to pay to watch the Super Bowl. And either you're going to watch it or you're not. And more times than not, people are still going to buy it. So
the interesting, the thing that was different about that Chiefs game is Peacock hadn't done this. To pull it out in the postseason, I think was anti-fan, and just kind of spring it on you. I'll admit, I used to have Peacock. I had canceled it. I went back to have it for the game, and Peacock's pretty good, actually. So being on that streaming platform is a good thing, but just give the fans a little more time and warning and clarity on what you're doing. The fact that the game was available in Kansas City on NBC and Miami on NBC, but not if there's an NBC affiliate or excuse me, CBS. What was it? CBS? No, NBC. It was NBC. Not if there's affiliate in Joplin or Topeka or I don't know, Fort Lauderdale. They couldn't carry it. It just doesn't make sense.
And it was an absolute money grab by the NFL too. Yep. I mean, that was the one thing about it. And it was the exact opposite of what they do for regular season games. If it doesn't sell out, they don't show it in the local areas. So this was the exact opposite of that. And I don't know. It just didn't make sense, but I don't disagree with a lot of people. And I'm actually one of those people that believe it's going that way anyway.
Yep. Well, show one's down, brother. We got the first one out of the way.
We did. I was nervous. I apologize. I'll get better, people. I'll get better.
Hey, you're not the one who forgot to start the stream. I just started the show earlier and forgot to click start stream. So we went live without going live. So we had to back up and do it again. But Adam and Chris were great.
They were great. We'll be back tomorrow to do it better.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support the